Whether you're on your way to work, slipping into the tub after a long day, or just don't feel like getting off that couch, get comfortable. It's time for the steamy parts. Mara Reed's been stirring up trouble since she was 18, running scams, living on the edge, always on the run. Now, when two thugs are after her with murder on their minds, she's forced into hiding in her small Texas hometown. But cornered in an alley, only seconds from death, an unexpected rescuer comes to her aid. Dr. Ethan Stewart, the dark and beautiful scientist whose heart she once broke and betrayed, the only man Mara ever loved. A forensic anthropologist, Ethan is investigating a gruesome discovery. Nearly 100 dead bodies dating back 50 years. A mystery linked to the church once headed by Mara's father. Ethan needs Mara's help. She needs his protection. And their search for a shocking, devastating truth could lead them to forgiveness, salvation, passion, and back to love. If they can survive the journey. This is Hidden Sins by Selena Montgomery. And now, for the steamy part. I have nowhere to go. She said it simply. I've run out of places to hide, Ethan. This is it. Home. Though he couldn't see it, she shrugged. A weary shift of shoulder that told its own story. It was simpler to hold the truth inside, she decided. It's easier for everyone. But she understood better than most that the truth had shades and layers and angles. That by sharing a sliver of honesty, few would seek more, sated by what they believed they comprehended. The Reed fortune is what I came back for. I need the gold to stop Rabin Guffin. To save my life. Ethan returned to her then. He stood in front of her and grasped her elbows, pulled her away from the wall. Fine. So go and find it. Leave me out of it. I would, if I thought you'd let the mystery go. She tugged at her caged arms, but his grip held firm. Admit it, Ethan. If I ran off and hunted for the treasure on my own, you'd chase after it. No, I wouldn't. Lying, wishing his words were true, he grated out. I'd be willing to sacrifice finding the manuscript to have you out of my life again. He leaned his face in close, their breaths mingling. Her huge brown eyes filled his vision, and her scent rose up to twine its skins around him. Baffled, he inhaled deeply against his will. In rough tones he growled. You disrupt everything, Mara. My thoughts, my work. Hell, I haven't slept in 4 days because of you. Unbidden, his thumb began to trace the silken skin at her elbow. The skin beneath trembled and he reveled in her body's tiny betrayal. I've spent a lifetime undoing the damage you caused before. Then why did you come back? She echoed his question softly. Her brain was growing fuzzy, lulled by the shivers that danced along her captive flesh. You could have turned the company down. You have a new life in Austin. A new love. To exorcise ghosts. Ethan freed one elbow to slide his hand along her arm, trailing fire. With a short step, he erased what had remained of the distance between them. To bury the dead, Mara. I needed to be here without you, to know that I could. I deserve a life that isn't clouded by you, by memories. Are they all so terrible, Ethan? She lifted a questioning hand to rest on his shoulder. When her fingers curled around the nape of his neck, he tugged her closer yet. She moved into him, willingly, eagerly. Fluorescent light gilded the room and a bulb flickered intermittently, drawing the room in guttered shadows. Why can't you stay away? Because you owe me. He stared at her mouth. The dark lips, wide and welcoming, taunted him, tempted him. By God, Mara, you owe me. In the next instant, his mouth closed over hers. Even as he tasted, the countless reasons why he should stop swirled in his hazed thoughts, but none seemed imperative. What mattered was how her mouth softened beneath his, how her lids drifted down and she arched effortlessly into his hungry body. That her high breasts, covered by his borrowed shirt, seemed to swell, to fill the emptiness of his hands. That her arms wrapped him close as though he belonged. All that counted was the glorious drowning. When memories submerged the present, they were again two people drawn together by irrefutable desire, by a passion and a bond that would not be denied. Mara gasped beneath the lips that seemed determined to devour her. In his hard, deliberate kiss, she could taste the confusion, his resistance to the need that stretched taut between them. Logic demanded that she pull away and spare both of them the coming regret. But she hadn't expected a second chance to feel like this. Craved. Control slipped into the gray dimness of the warehouse and left only the compulsion to savor. She reveled in the slick glide of tongue, the subtle nip of teeth, the hard, lean body that had filled out over the years, accepted every curve she offered, as though they'd never been apart. But they had, hissed Mara's reluctant conscience. And he'd moved on with his life, even as his beloved hands closed over her hips to drag her impossibly closer. The warning shrilled caution. She was not the woman he loved. Worse, if he betrayed Leslie, she'd be the one he'd blame. Summoning a will she didn't realize she possessed, Mara flattened her palms against his chest. The heart beneath raced with a vital speed, and her resolve wavered. Fevered kisses snaked a chain along her throat, burning away reason. Ethan, she moaned into his ear, tracing the exotic whorls there. Are you sure? In mute response, insistent hands anchored her thigh and hiked it near his hip. She could feel his hardened length, could remember its promise. Desperate now, she scrambled for buttons, loosening them from their moorings. Ethan skimmed beneath the loose cotton to fasten his eager fingers around her naked breasts. With delicate savagery, he toyed with the hard, naked tips and reveled in her abandoned cries. Determined to fend off caution, he dragged them both across the room to the laboratory table and lifted her up. The cold marble at Mara's back shocked her senses, and she reared up. Ethan! He joined her, bearing her onto the surface. I want you. He traced a line of wet fire along her collarbone, then dipped his tongue lower. Should I stop? Mara grasped futilely for reason. Surely, she thought, fuzzily, this was wrong. Because... The answer shone dimly, only to evaporate in the blaze as his mouth consumed her swollen flesh. Deeper and deeper he drew her in, and she had no reason except to bind him tighter. Legs tangled together, hands clasped, fingers intertwined. Sibilant wishes drifted over skin and into the cool air that surrounded them. A man's blue shirt fell to the floor, followed quickly by bunched white cotton. Soft yielded to hard, and angles sought the poetry of curves. Mara fumbled with the metal buckle at Ethan's waist, too consumed to remember good intentions or the vengeance of consequences. She couldn't recall not being with him, not needing him inside. Ethan feasted and hungered for more. The piquant flavor of the satin beneath her breast, the robust spice hidden at the indentation of her waist. It had been too long, he thought. Too long since he'd been sated. Too long since he'd let himself covet a woman's body. Gorge on sensation alone. When she measured him, he shook with the force of need and delight. Oh, Mara, what do you do to me? She bowed up to murmur the answer. Anything. Everything. Smoky laughter echoed her promise. Just let me love you. Love you. Love you. The phrase reverberated in his head, churned his scattered thoughts. Words Mara had never spoken to him before, and they were all he'd ever yearned for. Gently, Ethan reached between their linked forms to still her hands. This isn't right. Shifting away, he clambered off the lab table and felt along the floor for his discarded shirt. He rose from the ground and draped the fabric over her. We can't do this, Mara. I can't do this. Well, that has my vote for being one of the most seriously steamy cliffhangers I've read. If you're like me and want to find out what happens next for Mara and Ethan, I would go to your nearest bookseller, online retailer, or ask a friend if they have Hidden Sins by Selena Montgomery, because you can't afford to not find out where this story leads. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time.